Well, first of all, our thoughts and prayers go to the city of Houston. Seems a little insignificant right now to be talking about college football with the things that are going on in the city. So our thoughts and prayers there. Obviously, we're excited about the start of the season. I feel like we've had a really good off-season combination of spring ball, combination of summer workouts, and then training camp. I think we're in a really good place right now. Probably the most consistent training camp that I've been associated with. That's probably the word that I think probably best describes how our off-season and how our camp went. I really kind of like where we're at right now. Obviously excited about opening up with our opponent this week. Terry Bowden is a guy that obviously I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and his family and all the things that they've been able to accomplish. He's got a veteran staff, really a veteran team coming back. A team that gave a lot of people problems a few years ago. Last year started out really strong, had some injuries, and then dipped later in the season. So we're excited about the challenge. We're excited about the opportunity. We're excited to be back in Beaver Stadium in front of our friends and family and alumni and lettermen. Should be a great environment, and looking forward to the season.
We'll start with Rich Scarcella from the Reading Eagle.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Rich.
James, can you describe your confidence in the offensive line going into this season, and what kind of camp did Michael Menet have?
Yeah, I think our offensive line situation has changed dramatically since we arrived to now. I still think we have a lot of room for growth there, and that's exciting because if you look at us, we're still pretty young. We got a sophomore at left tackle, a sophomore at left guard, a sophomore at center. Got some maturity at the right guard position, and then a junior at the right tackle position. So we're still young, but I like where we're at. I like our depth. I like our growth at that position, and I feel like we do have confidence there, especially comparatively speaking over the last couple of years. Michael Menet is a guy that we're really excited about his future. He's still a freshman, when it comes to football. He's been able to put on the size that we think he needs to have to play at this level. He's had kind of some bumps and bruises and nicks that's, hasn't been any major issues, but it's been enough that he's missed a significant amount of practice time, during the spring and during the summer. So he just needs the time and reps to develop the fundamentals that he needs to play at this level, consistently. I don't think there's any question about his athleticism and his strength and his power and those types of things, but he just needs to practice consistently, to build that chemistry up with his teammates on the offensive line, as well as just the fundamentals and techniques he needs to be successful at this level. But we think he's got a very, very bright future.
Bob Flanders, Harrisburg Patriot News.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. James, I was hoping could you speak to the depth that you've been able to create in your quarterback room behind Trace McSorley? What have you seen from Tommy Stevens since the end of last year through spring and in August? And also, I was curious, have you been able to kind of form an opinion on your freshman Sean Clifford yet, the quarterback?
Yeah, so obviously, you guys, know how we feel about both Trace and Tommy. I mean, I remember a year ago, we had made the conversation that it was a legitimate battle for that spot, and people had made their opinions off of the spring game 2 years ago. But we felt like we had a legitimate battle, a legitimate competition there. I think the quarterback position is like a lot of the positions that we have on our team, and it's a challenge and it's a change that this is normal. I mean, for you to be a big-time football program, you should have two legitimate quarterbacks on your roster that you feel like you could win with, and you feel like you have a young developing guy. So we have a lot of confidence in Trace. I have a lot of confidence in Tommy. Tommy has matured so much in so many different areas of his life. I couldn't be more proud of him. he's really kind of developed into a complete quarterback that I think has a very, very bright future. Obviously, Sean Clifford is a guy that we were excited about coming in. Probably was much further ahead than we had anticipated mentally. Has really picked this offense up quickly. Asks a lot of questions, is locked in, takes great notes, is right on Coach Moorhead and Trace and Tommy's hip all the time. At practice, taking mental reps, and has really made a nice move. He probably runs better than we anticipated as well. Shows really good athleticism. And he's kind of got some of the it factor that people have been trying to kind of figure out and describe for 25 years at that position, or probably longer than that. But he has some of those things as well. So we're excited about it. We think we got 3 quarterbacks, and even more than that. When you factor in Jake and you factor in Schuster, when you factor in Fessler, we got a really good room of guys that allows our team to grow and continue to develop.
Derek Lavars, Wilkes-Barre Times leader.
Hi, James. Good afternoon.
Hey, Derek.
James, you mentioned the play of Troy Apke a few times since camp began. What has he shown you and the staff heading into the season at that safety spot?
Well, he's always been an athletic guy. He really has. He's a big guy. He's 6'1", basically 200 pounds. He's always been one of the more athletic guys in terms of vertical jump, broad jump, 40. He's always had those things. Obviously he's a guy who played as a freshman for us. Because we felt so highly of him on special teams and some other areas. And it's kind of been, what you want. You want a guy that's going to continue to work hard and embrace the role he has, but is continue to strive for more, and he's done that. So there's a lot of confidence on our team. There's a lot of confidence in our defensive room. He's a guy that's got really good range. He's got the size to be physical enough in the run game. He's got tremendous maturity, which we also think is important, and we have right now in our secondary. You look at him and Marcus and Christian and Grant. That gives us a lot of guys that played a lot of football, and I think they're going to have a really, really good year for us.
Mark Wogenrich, Allentown Morning Call.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Mark. How are you?
You mentioned earlier about this being probably the most consistent training camp you've been associated with. In what way? How did you measure that consistency and rank it at the top?
Well, I think there's always, the programs that I've been associated with, you get into the dog days of summer camp, and there's always 1 or 2 practices where the guys are sore, or it's hot, or they're tired, or whatever it is, and you got to pull it out of them. You got to go out there, and you're, using every method and every technique you got to try to get them to practice as hard as you think that they need to practice it. And we didn't have that. I thought the coaches did a good job setting the tempo in the meetings. I thought the leaders on our team, really brought the right energy and mindset out to practice every single day, and we practiced really, really well. I think, obviously the depth helped with that. And the development and the way we've recruited, I think all those things have helped with that. But I think more than anything, we had a group of guys that decided that they wanted to practice at a really high level every single day and made sure that happened. So that's where I would probably define when I talk about the consistency is just if you came out to practice, there wasn't a day where the coaches left the field angry and frustrated, and the players feeling like that they could have gave more looking back at it after the fact. I felt like, day in and day out, we practiced at a really high level. I think the new model may have helped with that a little bit as well, but I think more than anything, I think it was our depth and it was our leadership.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record.
Hey, James, how's it going today?
Good, Frank. How are you?
Good, good. DeAndre Tompkins seems to have the edge at the 1 receiver spot over Saeed. How close is that? What has DeAndre showed you with that, and also being your #1 punt returner?
Yeah, I think we really probably should and could have listed that as an or. Those 2 guys we kind of both look at as starters. They're going to play a lot of football for us. Saeed's played a lot of football for us. DeAndre's played a lot of football for us. Deshaun Hamilton, obviously. All those guys. Juwan Johnson, I think, is going to have a big year for us. So we very easily could have listed that as or. But you know, we have a lot of confidence in DeAndre. You know, DeAndre's a guy, you know, as a return man, we think he's got a chance to take a real step this year. As a wide receiver, his maturity, his strength. When he first got here, he could run, but he was undersized and he was more of an athlete playing wide receiver. You know, didn't really have the fundamentals and the techniques down. Wasn't durable enough. You know, I think he might have been 172, 175 pounds when he got here. And now he's a guy that, you know, has the strength, has the speed, has the durability, has the quickness and the movement. I mean, you look at, you know, size-wise, basically 190 pounds now. You know, but we think he's got a chance to be a complete wide receiver and then be able to take that maturity into the return game as well, which we really haven't had. You know, maturity in the return game, especially at the punt return position. So he's been able to learn and grow from some of his experiences as a freshman, and just, you know, really his total game evolving.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hi, James.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
Really good.
Good. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind going back about 3 years. The last time you played Akron was your first game at Beaver Stadium as Penn State's head coach. I was just wondering what you recall from that game, your level of nervousness, excitement, and did you have, how many family and friends did you have in the audience that day?
Well, to be honest with you, I know it was 3 years ago. It seems like, you know, 10 years ago. It seems like forever ago. I'm not a guy that really remembers, like, you know, I know people that can remember scores of high school games and remember scores of previous seasons and things like that. You know, I'm not really that type of guy. In terms of friends and family at the game, not many. I got a really small family on my, you know, my side of the family. My wife's got a really small family. I got one sister. I have no cousins. I got no first cousins. I got no aunts or uncles. I got a very, very, very small family, and I got a tight circle when it comes to friends. So I don't really have a lot of people come to games. You know, obviously, you know, with the success that we're having, you know, there's more friends popping up now that I haven't talked to in, you know, since 8th or 9th grade. But yeah, you know, the details of that game, you know, I remember the emotion of running out, you know, you know, through the stadium, through the gates for the first time. I remember that. But the specifics about that game and you know, those types of things, you know, probably not so much. You know, you know, I kind of look at, you know, really the last 3 years has kind of been a whirlwind, and you know, all those experiences and all those opportunities have got us to this point. I wouldn't change a thing that's happened over the last 3 years. All those experiences, all those opportunities, all those challenges have got us to this point.
Mike Gross, Lancaster Newspapers.
Good afternoon, James.
How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Really good.
Looking at the depth chart, I noticed that there's, I counted 10 true freshmen on the 3D, but without wanting to put too much emphasis on the depth chart, is that a little bit, that's more than I expected. Is that a little bit of a surprise how many of these guys have picked things up decently so far?
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate. I could be wrong. I go through and check it. Oh, I guess if you're counting the 3 deep, I guess there's a chance of that being accurate. I'm kind of going through and looking at it myself right now. Chris, if you could help me.
Yep.
But I don't think it's that many. I think right now, I think we got a handful of guys that we're talking about playing as true freshmen, and I think that's Lamont Wade. I think that's Etor Matos, and I think that's Castro Fields. But I don't think there's 10 true freshmen listed on here. I could be wrong.
I got 9.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right. Chris had 9, so I guess you're right. But right now we have 3 that we plan on you know, burning their red shirts right from the beginning of the season. That could change as the season goes on, and those 3, like I said, are Etor at defensive end and Lamont Wade and Castro Fields at corner. The other guys are listed to complete a 3 deep, and they're up with the varsity, you know, from a training perspective and practice, but we don't plan on playing, you know, those other guys, you know, on Saturday. Those guys are all probably considered yellows at this point, where if we have any injuries, then their status will go from yellow to green, which I think you guys have heard us talk about this in the past. So I think 3 is the number that we're at, and that number could grow as the season goes on.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Donnie. How are you?
I'm doing well. The snapper spot, how important was that competition for the special teams when you were replacing a really steady veteran guy? And how happy are you with how Bates has developed there?
Very much so. I think it's one of those positions that everybody takes for granted until you don't have one. I think it's great that we got a veteran guy like Kyle Vasey, who's been in the program for a number of years and watched one of the more consistent players we had in our program over the last 2 to 3 years. So I think that's been really, really important in his development. It's something that he takes a lot of pride in and takes it very, very serious. He's one of the guys that probably works on his craft as much as anybody on our team. I mean, you walk through the weight room and he's down there snapping on the turf. He's got a plastic bottle sitting on top of a metal bar, knocking the plastic bottle off over and over and over again as I'm walking through the weight room. He's in there every single day just kind of doing that on his own. So he's a guy that's approached it the right way, and I think is going to have a really good year for us and continue to have the consistency at that position we've had. Jan Johnson's a guy that kind of took it on last year, has kind of taught himself to do it. And then, we got 2 true freshmen, Calcagno and Stoll, are guys that have come in and done a really nice job for us that we're excited about for the future. I think Jan's a guy that could get us out of a game if we needed him to. And then I think Calcagno and Stoll would be 2 guys if we had to make a long-term change that they would go in and fill that role.
We'll open up to questions here in the room. Raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you.
Coach Franklin, good afternoon.
How you doing?
Doing well. So Akron brings in a tough unit. They're a talented team, but specifically, how have you prepared for a player like Ulysses Gilbert, who was the reigning MAC Defensive Player of the Year, and really could set the tone for the type of talent that you'll face in the Big Ten this year?
Well, I think it's always, the first game of the year is always challenging because you just don't completely know what you're going to get. What off-season studies have they done? What off-season studies have we done? That we've tweaked some things. Have they lost some players? Have they have some injuries that they're not that they're not communicating right now with the roster and the depth chart in the camp? It's not completely accurate. You just don't really know. So are we going to see more bare front than we've seen on tape? Are we going to see more of the Okie odd front type stuff than what we've seen on tape? Are they playing to what they think their strengths are personnel-wise this year? I'm not really sure. So I think that's probably the thing that concerns you the most. I think, what you're talking about is a player that's been very, very successful at their level for a number of years. And I think, what happens is you have a team that is excited about a season opener, an opportunity to play a team like Penn State and show what they're able to do. Nationally ranked, in our stadium in front of a big crowd. I was just watching, reading notes from Terry Bowden's most recent press conference, and they're excited. This is their Super Bowl. I've been a part of these in the past, and I think our coaches and our players also have seen enough upsets. I mean, you look in the Big Ten. Northwestern, last year I think losing to Western Michigan, Purdue losing to Bowling Green, Maryland losing to Bowling Green, Indiana losing to Bowling Green, Northwestern to Northern Illinois, Purdue to Central Michigan, Purdue to Northern Illinois, Iowa over Northern Illinois, Iowa over Central Michigan over Iowa, Ball State over Indiana, Ohio over Penn State in 2012. And that's just from 2012 to 2016. MAC teams that have beat Big Ten teams. So, our guys are aware of it. We respect whoever we play. At the end of the day, it's about us and playing up to our standard. But we need to be prepared for what Akron's going to do as well. But, again, first games of the year are always a little bit concerning for both teams because you don't truly know what you're going to get, until probably the first quarter's over.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Hey, Brendan Mann and Andrew Nelson were kind of question marks at the beginning of spring and even going into this camp. Can you talk a little bit about the progress they've made to get to where they are right now on the depth chart?
Yeah, I'm really proud of both of those guys, to be honest with you. Mann's a guy that, you know, has been through a lot in his time here at Penn State. You know, obviously was limited during spring ball and has now been able to be full go, you know, for the last, I don't know how many weeks, and has really embraced it. Looking back and watching the tape, when he plays for us, he brings a physical component to our offensive line that we probably don't have without him. He is a big, strong, physical offensive lineman who's got light enough feet that could play tackle for us. Gives us more of a road grader mentality at the guard position and has some of the heaviest hands I've ever been around. I mean, when he punches you, it's like getting hit with 2 cinder blocks. It really is. So we're excited about having him back. You know, Andrew Nelson I think is as talented as an offensive tackle as there is in the country. You know, we really could have listed that as an either or with him and Chaz. You know, he's still working back through some issues, and I think as the season goes on, you're going to see his role continue to grow, and he's going to play a lot for us. You know, I really foresee him having a significant role on our offensive line before it's all said and done. It just really kind of came down to Mann was ready for week 1, and Nelly's wasn't. You know, it really just comes down to that. But you know, those guys are irreplaceable from an experience standpoint, from a talent standpoint, from a maturity standpoint, and the fact that we have them back factored into our offensive line is significant for us.
Hey James,
how you doing?
You touched on this a little bit with that Akron question.
How you doing?
Good, I'm good. Good. To go from training camp mindset to game 1 mindset, what are some of the keys and/or challenges to have the players get ready to compete from a game mindset as opposed to the training camp that they?
Well, I think the maturity of our team helps with that. I think, you know, we got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football for us, so I think that helps. You know, one of the things that we made a conscious choice of this year is to go into the stadium and play in the stadium more. You know, get in there and practice in the stadium, because some guys, they just get in that environment, whether it's packed with 107,000 fans or not. It's different in there. Even with the jumbotrons on, the music going. So we went in there and we had the crowd noise going and the bands going and all that kind of stuff to try to get our guys a little bit more comfortable of being in there. And then I think just kind of flipping the switch. I think that naturally happens. Guys just get to the point in training camp, you know, with spring ball and then summer workouts and then training camp where they're ready to go against another opponent. You know, the interesting thing is what I talked to you guys about last week is just, you know, we're in a different situation. My first 2 years, not only did we lack some of the depth and the numbers that we needed, but we were also a young football team. So how do you get a young football team ready to play without practicing hard mentally or physically, which is what you needed to do, but you just didn't really have the numbers to support it. Where now we're in a situation where we got a lot of guys that played a lot of football for us. And for us, the most important thing was to build on those fundamentals and techniques and confidence that they have and make sure that we're a well-oiled machine as quickly as we possibly can, while also staying healthy and getting to the game. So it allowed us to kind of shift where in the past we've had maybe the majority of our reps in a team session go to the 1s and then a less amount to 2s and then a less amount to the 3s. You know, if you look at it, you know, in a pyramid, you know, style of training, we probably have gone to the opposite, where we've cut back the 1s reps and have given a little bit more reps to the 2s and a little bit more reps to the 3s to try to develop those guys, and then allow the position coaches to kind of be the head coaches of their position and modify where we need to modify. I think Jason Cabinda is a really good example. Saquon Barkley is a good example. Marcus Allen's a good example. You know, it's not like we needed to scrimmage those guys to find out who they are as football players, where figuring out who the number 2 and number 3 are probably more significant.
Hey James, how you doing?
How you doing?
I'm living.
I'm good too.
Last year after you guys beat Ohio State, you played 7 more games, but you only played 2 here. So to a certain extent, you guys were a little insulated from that whole high pressure situation of playing with high expectations in front of a home crowd each and every week. And obviously playing at home is an asset for everybody, especially you guys. But how do you get a team ready for a season where people know what you guys are from week one, whereas maybe last year, by the time they knew how good you were, there weren't a lot of home games left to really kind of get on you about it?
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily describe the way the season ended was that we were insulated from the pressure. I don't know if that's a fair way to describe how that season played out. I think your point is we didn't play a lot of games at home. I would agree with that, but I make the argument it's harder to play on the road, than it is at home. You have all those home field advantages when it comes to noise and cadences and all those types of things. So, I haven't thought about that, to be honest with you, at all. I'd love to play every single game at home all year long. I don't know if the Big Ten or the other teams would agree to that, but I'd like to play at home as much as we possibly can. But I think our guys handled the environment and the stage very well last year, and I think playing on the road, I would characterize the Rose Bowl game last year as a road game. So I think there's challenges, when it comes to those things.
James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So last year, I remember at the start of the season, before you're playing Kent State, you're like, if I was them, I would take Saquon Barkley out of the game and make the quarterback win the game, and that's what you got most of last season. Do you expect that to be the same this year with what Trey showed last year? Because his perception of him is so much higher now than it was this time a year ago.
Yeah, I still think you have to go into it saying that you're going to take the opponent, whoever it is, week in and week out. You try to take their strength away. So whether it's a player or whether it is a style of play, whether it's running the ball or passing the game, you try to make people one-dimensional. I think we go into it every single week. If we're playing a defense and they have a defensive end that you think is a game wrecker, you can't allow that guy to wreck the game. You got to have a plan to kind of limit the impact that he's going to have. No different. If they have a receiver, and he's one of the best receivers in the country, you can't allow that guy to dictate the game. You're going to have to double team him, roll cloud coverage to him, whatever it may be. And I think that's going to be the plan this year as well. I think people are going to say, we have got to, if you had to choose between Saquon Barkley and Tracy McSorley, I think most people are going to say they're going to try to, eliminate Saquon Barkley as much as you possibly can and make Trace beat you. I agree with your point. I don't know if that's a great situation, and I think that's what makes us so difficult to defend, is you got an experienced running back that is very well thought of. You got an experienced quarterback now that is very, very well thought of. You got an experienced offensive line. You got a weapon at the tight end position, and you got multiple weapons at wide receiver. Deshaun Hamilton's a guy that not a whole lot of people are talking about. He's got a chance to be the all-time leading receiver in Penn State history, and 2 years ago led the league in catches. So, that's the challenge, and that's what you want to try to do in terms of how you develop the guys in your program and how you recruit, that you have a lot of weapons and you're not one-dimensional. I think that's what makes us a difficult task, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Hey James, happy week one.
Happy week one to you.
Thanks. Curious, when you look at Cam Brown, year two, what do you want to see from him this year? Because obviously he's a guy who can give you a lot of different options at a couple different spots there.
Yeah, I think Cam is another guy that very easily could have been listed as at a number of spots, at the boundary backer or at the field backer. Really excited about the depth that we have. Once again, it's changed. In the last couple of years, it's changed here. You got a guy like Cam Brown, our 2 deep with him and Manny is really good. We haven't had that situation in the past. He very easily could have been, listed out there as the number 2 at the Sam linebacker position as well. And to be honest with you, I think if we were in a pinch, we could put him in at Mike. He's a smart guy. He's obviously got tremendous range and length, and has played a lot of football for us. So we're excited about him and his development. I think long term, he's got a very, very bright future. But again, it starts with Akron this week and him continuing to grow and him to continue to develop as the season goes on. But we couldn't be more excited about him. You know, it's amazing because, you know, he's about 230 pounds now, but on that 6'5" frame, he still looks skinny. You know, him and Manny, to be honest with you. But I think that's kind of how the game has changed and evolved. The days of the 6'2", 250-pound linebackers are gone with the spread offense and the mobility at the quarterback position.
Hey James, wondering. Good. How are you?
Good.
What you obviously have a Heisman candidate in Saquon, and I'm wondering your philosophy on such big individual awards, how you approach them, what you think about all the national Heisman watches. Do you consciously try to showcase him a little bit more? Just wondering if you could address that. And have you picked a kickoff man?
Yeah, you know, our focus is on, you know, our team being successful. The thing that's great that we talk about all the time, with team success comes individual recognition. You know, the award that you were talking about usually goes to the best player on the best team. So, you know, we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about it or concerned about that. We have a marketing department that will do those types of things. But, you know, for us, and I know for Saquon, you know, we just want to, you know, put our team in the best position to be successful. And the best way of doing that is putting your best players in the best position to be successful. So I really think, you know, one situation will take care of the other.
Okay.
Oh, and then kickoff, I think it'll be Tyler Davis.
James, you mentioned the difficulties of game planning for a season opening opponent, not knowing what to expect. So I'm curious how you balance, you know, the conjecture you might have about what they might introduce that you'd be unfamiliar with versus we know they'll do X, Y, and Z, and this is how we need to handle that. Of course, with the extra days too coming off of training camp.
You really don't. You know, all you can do is prepare for what you see on film. So we just spend all our time breaking them down, no different than we would any other team. So you've gone back and watched their last 4 opponents. And then on top of that, you've gone and broke down similar style teams. Like for example, if we're playing a team that played Navy before us, well, we're not going to use Navy because that film is no value to us. So it's the 4 previous opponents, or it's pulling out similar opponents, you know, like-minded, you know, teams and similar styles, those types of things. So that's the first thing. And then what you're just trying to do is you're trying to read every article that you can find that may show you something that they may be majoring in or trying to do a little bit different, but you don't really know. You know, and that's where you kind of have rules on offense, defense, and special teams to handle. So, you know, we have rules in how we block an odd front, you know, on offense, whether it's run game or pass game, and we may not be preparing for that a whole lot, and then all of a sudden they come out and they're doing it 90% of the time. We have to trust our rules, you know. That's also why when we go through training camp, we break it up like that. So, you know, we start out training camp just going base offense, base defense. Then we work in some pressures. You know, then we work in DB pressures. You know, no different for our defense. We'll have a day where we start to work in empty or work in unbalanced sets and things like that. And then I think the other thing we have to do a great job of is, now with us being more of a predominant spread offense, well, our defense never gets 2-back offense. They never get power. They never get what we're going to see against Michigan, what we're going to see against Michigan State, what we're going to see against Pitt, what we're going to see against, you know, future opponents. So what we had to do is all camp make sure we were spending enough time of getting those things that we don't see from our defense or that we don't see from our offense to make sure it's covered. That's making sure that your team is prepared for all the things that they may see as the season goes on. So that's what you try to do. You try to lay a foundation of all these things, but then all you can really do is spend time on what you see and what you know. And, you know, I made that mistake in my career as a you know, offensive coordinator early on, where I spent so much time chasing ghosts, you know, preparing for things that you may see, all the data would say that you're probably going to see it less than 1% of the time. But as that young coordinator, you're trying to cover it all. and then what happens is you end up not being good at anything. You know, so I think all of us as coaches have kind of been through that, and what is the fine line about covering those things that you need to cover without spending too much time on them that it takes away from you getting good at anything.
Time for two more.
James. So, I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Good. You mentioned Tariq and Lamont as two freshmen whose red shirts are going to be burned. Tyler Davis mentioned this morning on the conference calls that those are two guys who really stood out on kickoff coverage. What are their roles going to be on special teams from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's probably a major factor in when you decide to burn a guy's red shirt and play him as a true freshman, is how much of a role do you see them having on special teams. If you look at Grant Haley, I think he's a perfect example of a guy who's a true freshman, played a lot on special teams, had a lot of success on special teams, and then his role grew as the season went on the defensive side of the ball. That's what you'd like. That's what you'd like for a number of these guys. The thing that's different once again now is we're just in a situation where our first team and our second team now on special teams is filled with veteran players. Where in the past, once again, those guys, right away would have been into too deep, where now they're having to fight to get into the too deep. So we're just in a much healthier spot, and guys are playing because they've earned it, not because of just the circumstances that we're in. So, I expect all those guys, including Etor, to have a role on special teams, and that role to continue to grow as the season goes on.
How's it going, James?
How are you?
Excellent. Hey, Miles, how much did he learn last year, Sanders, returning kicks? And do you see him as being the guy there? And one last thing, are there instances where you could imagine Saquon being used in that position?
Yeah, I think there's definitely situations that we plan on using Saquon. I think Miles has learned a lot and has grown a lot in a lot of different areas. It's funny because I think all these guys, they come into it through the recruiting process and what they envision their freshman year to be. Very rarely does it play out that way. I think nationally, very rarely does it play out the way they kind of pictured it in their mind. And I think that's good. I think it's a process for all of us. This is a very humbling profession, and those guys being able to go through that where they were dominant high school prospects and high school players, and then they get here and they're basically at the bottom of the barrel and they got to fight their way back up, and that's a really important stage and process to go through from a maturity standpoint, from a growth standpoint. So I think Miles will be the first one to tell you he's a completely different player now than he was 2 years ago. And we think he's got a very, very bright future, but I think that those things are important. And I think obviously having a guy like Saquon in front of you to watch and learn and grow from, and even Mark Allen, that running back group, Andre Robinson, that running back group, that they do it the right way. Coach Huff has really developed a culture at that position. They are high production on the field, they are low maintenance off the field. Academically, socially, the whole package. Those guys take a lot of pride in that, and Journey is part of that now. They're kind of taking him under the wing and showing him how we do things around here, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud of right now, is that we do have a culture, and a big brother program, where the old guys are really taking the young guys and teaching them what it means to be a Penn Stater. The things that I heard that were so strong in this program for a very, very long time, and I think they're back. I think it's back in a very, very strong way now, where you have veteran leaders at each position showing the young guys how we do things. And don't get me wrong, we had that in the past, but it's hard for that to happen when the guy shows up and he's into too deep right away. Where guys are showing up and having to earn that now, and earn the respect of their teammates, and earn the respect of the coaches, and earn that time on the field, I think just helps with that entire process.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be joined momentarily by Ryan Bates.
Are there any questions answered?
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.